One singer ignored serious health warnings just to spend $50 million. Another ghosted her own band because of paranoia. These are the R&B stars with shockingly poor judgment scores. We are diving into the messy details of their financial and logical collapses. You need to hear about the group that sold 10 million albums but had to file for bankruptcy right after because they did not read the fine print. 1. TLC. The 90s were dominated by one girl group that seemed to have it all. TLC was everywhere. They had the baggy clothes, the cool dance moves, and the catchy songs that everyone knew. T-Boz, Chili, and Left Eye were on top of the world with their album Crazy S Cool, which sold over 10 million copies. You would think that they were swimming in pools of cash, but the thing nobody tells you is that they were actually broke. They had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy right in the middle of their biggest success. It turns out the group had signed a contract that gave them only 7% of the profits. That is a shockingly low number for the people actually singing the songs. They trusted their manager and did not do the math. To put it mildly, it was a financial disaster. Each girl was making less than $50,000 a year, while the record label was making millions. But the bad judgment did not stop at signing a bad paper. Things got even more chaotic with Lisa Left Eye Lopes. She was in a very rocky relationship with a football player named Andre Rison. One day, in a fit of rage, she decided to burn his shoes in the bathtub. That does not sound like a smart idea, and it wasn't. The fire quickly spread and ended up burning down his entire mansion. The house was worth over $2 million. This mistake cost her huge amounts of money in legal fees and damages. The group was already struggling with money, and this incident made it impossible for them to recover quickly. It is hard to believe that a group this famous could make such poor choices with their business and their personal lives. The bankruptcy became a huge news story and shattered the illusion of their success. They eventually made more music, but the financial hole they dug was deep. What many overlooked is that this kind of money trouble is a pattern in the industry. But if you think signing a bad contract is a headache, just wait until you hear about the singer who went broke not once but twice because she refused to stop buying expensive plates. 2. Toni Braxton. Toni Braxton has one of the most recognizable voices in history. Her deep and sultry tone made songs like Unbreak My Heart instant classics. She sold millions of albums and won tons of awards. But behind the scenes, her bank account was telling a very different story. Toni Braxton is famous in the financial world for filing for bankruptcy 2 separate times. The first time was in 1998, right after her biggest hits. It was a similar story to TLC, where she signed a bad deal and reportedly only got a royalty check for less than $2,000. But the second time she went broke, in 2010, was much more shocking. She was reportedly up to $50 million in debt. You might wonder how one person can spend that much money. Well, she admitted to Oprah Winfrey that she had a serious problem with home decor. She was buying very expensive Gucci flatware and fancy plates and things for her house that she did not need. She said she was trying to keep up a wealthy image even when the money was not coming in. What makes this even more baffling is that she was diagnosed with lupus, a serious health condition. Doctors told her she needed to slow down and not work so hard, but because she was in so much debt, she had to keep touring and performing, which put her health at risk. It was a cycle of bad decisions. She would spend money she did not have and then work herself sick to pay it back. She eventually had to rely on a reality TV show with her sisters just to get some cash flow back. It is a sad case of someone who had the world at her feet but could not manage the simple math of income versus spending. However, spending too much on forks and knives is one thing, but our next star decided that the best way to handle a problem was to lie to a judge and land herself in a prison cell. 3. Lil Kim. Lil Kim was known as the Queen Bee. She changed the game for women in hip-hop with her bold style and colorful wigs. She was a huge star in the late 90s and early 2000s. She was part of the junior MOFIA crew and was close with the legend Biggie Smalls. But her street smarts did not seem to translate to the courtroom. In 2005, she found herself in the middle of a very serious legal situation. There was a shooting incident involving her entourage outside a radio station in New York. Police called her to testify about what happened. This was her chance to just tell the truth and move on. Instead, she decided to lie. She told the grand jury that she did not know the men involved and that she was not there. The problem was that there was security footage that showed her opening a door for the very men she said she did not know. It was a decision that lacked basic logic. Prosecutors easily proved she was lying. She was convicted of perjury, which is a fancy word for lying in court, and conspiracy. She was sentenced to a year and a day in prison. This halted her career right when she was supposed to be dropping new music. On top of the prison time, she also had massive tax issues. She owed the government over $1 million because she simply stopped filing her tax returns. Ignoring the tax man is never a smart move. Her reputation took a huge hit, and she struggled to get back to the top of the charts after she got out. She went from wearing designer clothes on red carpets to wearing a jumpsuit in a cell, all because she made a split-second decision to lie when the cameras were watching. While prison is bad, it is at least a concrete punishment. Our next singer is a genius lyricist who somehow convinced herself that paying taxes was optional and ghosted the very group that made her famous. 4. Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill is often called a musical genius. Her album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, is considered one of the best albums of all time. She was also a key member of the Fugees, a group that took over the world. But her behavior outside of the studio has been confusing, to say the least. After her massive solo success, she basically disappeared. She started showing up hours late to her own concerts, or sometimes not showing up at all. She developed a reputation for being extremely unreliable, but the biggest sign of poor judgment came with her finances. In 2013, she was sentenced to 3 months in prison for tax evasion. She had failed to pay taxes on nearly $2 million of earnings. When she was asked why she did not pay, she went on a long rant about how the system was broken and how she was rejecting the pop culture climate. While her artistic points might have been valid, the government does not accept philosophical essays as payment. She also famously ghosted the Fugees reunion. The group had a chance to tour and make millions of dollars. Wyclef Jean, another member of the group, said that dealing with her was impossible because she was so paranoid and difficult. She walked away from huge paydays because of her erratic beliefs. It is a classic case of someone being book smart or music smart, but lacking the practical sense to keep their life in order. She alienated her fans and her friends. Her legacy is now a mix of amazing music and baffling behavior. But while Lauryn Hill simply refused to pay, our next star signed a contract that was so bad, she ended up bankrupt despite coming from one of the most famous families in music history. 5. LaToya Jackson. Being a Jackson means you are musical royalty. LaToya Jackson is the sister of Michael and Janet, 2 of the biggest stars ever. You would think that growing up in that family would teach you everything about the music business. But LaToya made some moves that left people stunned. In the late 80s and early 90s, she fell under the influence of a manager named Jack Gordon. He was known for being manipulative, but LaToya trusted him completely. She signed contracts that were terrible for her. In 1995, she had to file for bankruptcy. She claimed she had debts of over $650,000. That might not sound like a lot for a Jackson, but for her, it was ruinous. She had burnt bridges with her family and had no support system left. She later claimed that her manager forced her to do things she did not want to do. But critics pointed out that she stayed with him for years. She also released a book that made wild accusations about her family, which she later had to retract. It made her look like she had no mind of her own. Her musical career never really took off because she was seen as a joke or a puppet. She tried to launch a career in country music, which flopped, and then tried reality TV. Every move she made seemed desperate rather than calculated. She eventually got away from the bad manager, but the damage to her finances and her reputation was done. It is a cautionary tale about trusting the wrong people. But at least LaToya knew when to fold. Our next legend owed $10 million to the IRS because she trusted a telephone hotline to manage her fortune. 6. Dionne Warwick. Dionne Warwick is a legend. She sang classics like Walk On By and That Is What Friends Are For. She was the picture of elegance and class. But in the 90s, she became the face of something very different. She became the spokesperson for the Psychic Friends Network. You probably remember the commercials where she urged people to call in and get their future read. It seemed like a goofy side gig, but it was actually bringing in a ton of money. However, Dionne Warwick was not paying attention to where that money was going. In 2013, she filed for bankruptcy. The numbers were staggering. She owed nearly $10 million in back taxes to the IRS. She also owed money to a business manager. She claimed that she had been mismanaged and that her money was mishandled by people she trusted. But owing $10 million means you ignored the problem for a very long time. It was shocking that a woman of her stature was completely broke. She had less than $25,000 in assets and barely $1,000 in cash when she filed. The news was embarrassing. People made jokes that she should have called the psychics to warn her about the bankruptcy. It showed a total lack of oversight on her part. She let people run her life until there was nothing left. She spent years trying to dig herself out of the hole. It is hard to see a legend reduced to financial ruin, but at least she had hits. Our next singer had a very unique look and voice, but she went bankrupt before she even really got started, all because of a lawsuit she ignored. 7. Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper is an 8. Meat Loaf. Meat Loaf was the voice behind Bat Out of Hell, one of the best-selling albums in history. It is an operatic rock masterpiece. You would assume the guy singing it was set for life. But Meat Loaf had a chaotic career filled with very low moments. In the early 80s, he faced a mountain of lawsuits. His songwriters and his managers were all suing him for millions. Meat Loaf filed for bankruptcy in 1983. He had lost his voice for a while due to stress and exhaustion, but his financial decisions were just as bad as his health. In a moment of panic and poor judgment, he sold the rights to his future royalties just to get some quick cash. This is widely considered one of the worst moves a musician can make. If you sell your royalties, you stop making money when your songs get played. Considering how popular his songs remained for decades, he lost out on a fortune. He was known for being very emotional and impulsive. He would make decisions based on anger or fear rather than logic. He spent the next decade trying to claw his way back to relevance. He eventually had a comeback in the 90s, but he had to work twice as hard because he had given away so much in the 80s. His passion was his strength on stage, but his weakness in the boardroom. Speaking of weakness, our next star was a folk legend who let substances destroy his brain and his bank account to the point where he became the punchline of the band. 9. David Crosby. David Crosby was a founding member of two legendary bands, the Byrds and Crosby, Stills, and Nash. He wrote beautiful harmonies and was a key part of the 60s counterculture. But by the 80s, David Crosby was in a downward spiral that was hard to watch. He had a massive problem with substances that clouded his judgment completely. He was arrested multiple times on weapons and substance charges. His behavior was so erratic that his bandmates did not want to work with him anymore. In 1985, he filed for bankruptcy. He had blown through millions of dollars on his lifestyle and legal defenses. He had absolutely nothing left. He was living on a boat and eventually ended up in a Texas prison for several months. It was a humiliating fall for a rock god. He admitted later that he was not thinking clearly for almost a decade. His brain was so fogged up that he could not make simple decisions about money or his career. He burned bridges with everyone who tried to help him. It took a liver transplant and a long stint in prison for him to finally wake up. He became the poster child for wasted potential. He managed to survive, but his finances were never the same. He spent his later years touring just to pay the bills. While Crosby blamed the substances, our next rapper was part of a savvy group called Wu-Tang Clan, but he still managed to get caught in a tax trap that cost him his luxury car. 10. Method Man. Method Man is one of the most charismatic rappers ever. As a member of the Wu-Tang Clan and a successful solo artist, he had hit songs and even acting roles. He seemed to be one of the smarter ones in the game, but in 2010, the tax man came knocking. It turned out Method Man had not filed his taxes for several years. The state of New York seized his Lincoln Navigator as part of the payment. He owed over $30,000 in back taxes. When the news broke, he pleaded guilty to tax evasion. His excuse was honestly a bit shocking. He claimed that he was just lazy and forgetful. He said he simply did not open his mail. He had piles of unread mail in his house, and he just ignored them. That is a level of irresponsibility that is hard to understand for a grown man running a business. Ignoring official letters from the government is a guaranteed way to get in trouble. He had to pay a fine and serve probation. It was a humiliating moment for someone who rapped about being sharp and street smart. It showed that no matter how cool you are, you still have to do your paperwork. He became a joke for a while as the rapper who lost his car because he would not open an envelope. He paid his debt and moved on, but it remains a smudge on his record. But forgetting to open mail is one thing. Our next rapper was part of G-Unit, and he managed to go bankrupt despite being under the wing of one of the richest men in hip-hop. 11. Young Buck. Young Buck was a member of G-Unit, the group led by 50 Cent. In the early 2000s, they were the biggest thing in rap. They were selling millions of records and touring the world. Young Buck should have been set for life, but his spending habits were out of control. He was buying jewelry and cars and living a lifestyle he could not sustain. Then the feud started. He got kicked out of G-Unit, and 50 Cent, who is a business shark, made sure Young Buck could not make money elsewhere. Young Buck was stuck in a contract that prevented him from releasing new music. In 2010, he filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy and then later converted it to Chapter 7 liquidation. That means he had to sell everything he owned to pay his debts. But the wildest part happened later. He filed for bankruptcy again in 2020. He was trying to get out of his debts to 50 Cent and the record label. It seemed like he had learned nothing from the first time. He was caught trying to hide assets, and the court trustee accused him of not being honest. It was a mess of bad legal moves and stubbornness. He let his pride and his poor spending habits destroy a golden opportunity. He went from stadium tours to struggling to put out mixtapes. Speaking of G-Unit, the boss himself is next on our list. You would think the man who made millions on vitamin water would be too smart for this, but he made a mistake involving a private tape that cost him a fortune. 12. 50 Cent. 50 Cent is known as a business mogul. He famously invested in vitamin water and made a massive profit when it sold to Coca-Cola. He seemed untouchable, but in 2015, he shocked the world by filing for bankruptcy. People could not believe it. How could the man with so much money be broke? Well, it all started with a very bad decision regarding a woman named Lastonia Leviston. 50 Cent had obtained a private tape of her and decided to post it online with his own commentary to mock a rival rapper, Rick Ross. It was a cruel and childish move. The woman sued him for invasion of privacy, and she won big. The jury ordered him to pay her $7 million. At the same time, he was losing a lawsuit over a headphone design that cost him another $17 million. Faced with these huge judgments, he filed for bankruptcy to protect his assets. He claimed in court that his lifestyle was fake and that the jewelry and cars were rented. It was a strange pivot for a man who bragged about his wealth constantly. While the bankruptcy might have been a strategic move to reorganize his debt, the actions that led to it were undeniably low IQ moments. Posting that tape was a legal nightmare that he walked right into. He damaged his brand and had to answer embarrassing questions about his real net worth. He survived it because he is a hustler, but it was a close call. Our next rapper is one of the best-selling artists of all time, but even he could not figure out how to stop spending more than he made. 13. Eminem. Eminem is a rap god. He has sold more albums than almost anyone else in the genre. He is known for his sharp lyrics and his battle rap skills. But early in his career, his finances were a disaster. Before he got sober, he was dealing with serious substance issues that clouded his judgment. But even after he got big, he ran into trouble with the IRS. In 2010, it was reported that he had tax liens against him. It was not because he was trying to cheat the system, but because his management and his spending were not aligned. He was spending huge amounts of money on homes and security and legal fees for his various lawsuits. There were stories that he would spend wildly without checking the balance. He also had to pay a lot of money in settlements for lawsuits involving his mother and his ex-wife, Kim. His personal life was so chaotic that it drained his bank account. He avoided total ruin, but there were times when his cash flow was dangerously low despite his fame. He admitted in songs that he was bad with money and responsibilities. He eventually got better accountants and cleaned up his life. But he is a prime example of how personal chaos can lead to financial stupidity. He was lucky his talent was so huge it covered his mistakes. Our next legend is from New York, and he wrote the Bible of hip-hop, but he faced a $6 million tax bill that almost took his crown. 14. Nas wrote Illmatic, which is widely considered the greatest hip-hop album ever. He is a poet and a thinker. You expect him to be smart about everything. But in 2011, news broke that Nas owed the IRS over $6 million. That is a staggering amount of money. The government even garnished his wages, which means they took money directly from his paychecks before he even saw it. On top of the tax debt, he was in a bitter court battle with his ex-wife, Kelis, over spousal and child support. The judge ordered him to pay thousands of dollars a month that he claimed he did not have. It was a messy situation where he was being squeezed from all sides. Reports came out that he was struggling to pay his mortgage. For a guy who calls himself a king, having your wages garnished is a huge embarrassment. It suggests that for years he was earning millions, but not setting aside the portion that belongs to Uncle Sam. It is the #1 rule of making money, but he missed it. He had to tour relentlessly to pay off the debt. He eventually fixed his finances and became a venture capitalist investing in tech companies, so he clearly learned his lesson. But those years of debt were a dark cloud over his legacy. Our next star was a teen heartthrob who grew up in the spotlight but never learned how to handle the adult responsibilities of money. 15. Aaron Carter. Aaron Carter was a massive star as a kid. He had hit songs like "I Want Candy" and beat Shaq in a music video. He was the little brother of a Backstreet Boy. He made millions before he could even drive. But his transition to adulthood was tragic and filled with terrible decisions. By the time he was in his 20s, he was completely broke. In 2013, he filed for bankruptcy. He had over $2 million in debt and only $8,000 in assets. Most of his debt was owed to the IRS. He claimed that his parents had mismanaged his money when he was a minor, which is likely true. But even as an adult, he continued to make poor choices. He spent money on things he could not afford and got into legal trouble. He had a very public struggle with his mental health and substances. He would go on social media and say things that damaged his career further. He burned bridges with his brother Nick and the rest of his family. He sadly passed away in 2022, leaving behind a legacy of what could have been. His story is a heartbreaking example of a child star who was never taught how to manage his life or his fortune. From a sad story to a volatile one, our next singer has a voice of gold but a temper that led to a very dangerous situation with her husband. 16. Keke Wyatt. Keke Wyatt is an R&B powerhouse. She can out-sing almost anyone. She had a huge hit with the song "Nothing in This World," but her personal life has often overshadowed her talent. In 2002, she was involved in a shocking incident. On Christmas Day, she got into a physical altercation with her husband and manager at the time. It ended with her allegedly stabbing him with a steak knife. She claimed it was self-defense and that he had been aggressive towards her. The charges were eventually dropped, but the story stuck to her. It painted a picture of a volatile and dangerous home life. Using a weapon in a domestic dispute is a decision that can end lives and ruin careers. While she was seen as a victim by many, the incident showed a lack of control that worried record labels. She continued to have a messy personal life with multiple marriages and public feuds. Her reality TV appearances showed her as highly emotional and reactive. This hot-headed reputation made it hard for her to get the big mainstream push she deserved. She is still working and singing, but she never reached the superstar level that her voice warranted, partly due to the drama surrounding her name. Our next star was a Broadway legend who played Dorothy in The Wiz, but she let herself be exploited in business deals that left her with nothing. 17. Stephanie Mills. Stephanie Mills has a voice that is pure magic. She was the original Dorothy in The Wiz on Broadway and had huge R&B hits in the 80s like Home. She was a tiny woman with a giant talent, but she admitted later in life that she was very gullible when it came to business. She trusted the wrong people to handle her finances. She lost millions of dollars due to bad investments and theft by financial advisors. She said she was focused on the art and let the men in suits handle the money. This is a common but fatal mistake. She found herself in financial trouble despite having a catalog of hit songs. She also made some career moves that did not pan out, like trying to transition to pop music in a way that alienated her core fan base. She spoke out later about how the industry takes advantage of young black artists. While she was right, her lack of oversight on her own accounts was a major error in judgment. She had to keep touring in smaller venues to make ends meet when she should have been resting on a fortune.